Senator Sanders, thank you so much for being on our show and coming back to it. I know you're very, very busy. Thank you.
Well, thanks very much for having me.
Last time you were on our show and was March 11th, and we were in the studio on the Tonight Show in New York, and that was the last show that we had a live audience.
Yeah.
It feels like so long ago.
You know, Jimmy, it is a crazy, crazy time for our country and, in fact, the world. You know, when we're kids, we study history and we look at pivotal moments, the Civil War, the Great Depression, World War II. Well, you know, people are going to be looking back at this moment as just an unprecedented, extraordinary moment in the history of this country because so many different things are coming together. You know, we're looking at this terrible pandemic, over 100,000 people dead. You're looking at an economic collapse, 40 million people losing their jobs. You're looking at people's consciousness regarding police brutality and police murder in Minneapolis and people responding appropriately to that. And in the midst of this, you have a president who is a narcissist, who is a pathological liar, who in my view is unfit for the job. And you add all of those things together. This is where we are as a moment, in this moment. And we've got to do everything that we can to fight our way out of this and create the kind of country that we know that we can become.
Let's start with talking about the protests. What do these protests mean for our political future? Like, where do we go from here?
Well, first of all, I got to tell you, as I look at the video and I look at the photographs of these beautiful, beautiful young people, these are young African Americans and not so young, and whites and Latinos and Asian Americans. I have, you know, people say, are you optimistic for the future of this country? And I am, because I see the beauty and the decency in these young people who want to create an America very, very different than the one we have right now. And they are standing up today saying that we do not want young African Americans to be afraid about walking the streets, you know, because they may get beaten up or murdered by police officers. But it goes beyond that. If you're looking at that generation today, those young people who are marching, my guess is 20–25% of them do not have jobs because we're looking at massive unemployment today.
Yeah.
You're looking at young people who cannot afford to go to college or coming out of school deeply in debt. We're looking at 100 million Americans who have no health insurance today, despite the fact we pay the highest prices in the world for health care. And you're looking at so many of our people who are working for starvation wages. So that is where we are. And what these protests are about, I think, are Americans from every background, every race, standing up and demanding justice, demanding a government and an economy that works for all and not just the few.
You know a thing or two about protests. Do you remember your first protest? Or?
Oh, God, I've been in so many, but yes. I mean, I certainly, when I was a young man in the University of Chicago, way back when, I was arrested for protesting segregated schools in Chicago and was active in a civil rights movement protesting against segregated housing. So, you know, and I had the honor of being at the March on Washington for Jobs and Freedom, where Dr. King spoke.
Wow.
So, you know, I've been at many demonstrations throughout my life. And all I can say is I'm very proud of the people who are standing up for justice and taking to the streets today.
Do you see the charges against the police officers a result of the protests?
Absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, I think what everybody knows is this is not the first instance of a police torture and murder. I mean, we all know the names. We have seen it over and over and over again. It has gone on for decades when there were no video cameras, when there were no cell phones recording this.
Right.
It has gone on. And you have African-American mothers who today are scared to death of sending their kids out to the playground because they might bump into some racist police officer. So, you know, what we have got to do, among many other things, and some of us are working hard on this, is fundamental criminal justice and police department reform. And essentially what that reform is about is that police officers have got to be held accountable for their actions. And that certainly has not happened in the past. But to answer your question, no doubt in my mind that because millions of people have spoken up on this issue, we're seeing some progress. And I will tell you that Keith Ellison, who's the Attorney General in Minnesota, is, I believe, going to do a very, very good job in prosecuting this case.
I want to talk about November when we get back. Do you mind sticking around for another minute?
My pleasure.
Thank you. More with Bernie Sanders when we return.
On and on and on. I said, and it's on and on and on.